Good morning, dear students. Today we are going to make a quick revision about what we took from the beginning of the term. Let's start by Unit 1, Lesson 1, Friction. First, what is the meaning of friction? As we see, the friction is a force that acts between two surfaces, touch each other, and acts in the opposite direction to the direction of the motion, causing slowing down the motion of the object until it stops. What are the types of the friction? We have three types of the friction. Friction between solid object, friction between solid and air, friction between solid and water. What about the friction, the factors that affect the friction? Generally, we can say the type of the surface material and the surface area, finally the speed of the body. Let's talk about each one in details. If we talk about the surface area, by increasing the surface area of the object, the friction force increases, and by decreasing the surface area, the friction force also decreases, which means that they are in a direct relationship. What about the second factor, which is the type of the surface material? We know that we have two types of materials, smooth and rough. It increases between the rough and decreases between the smooth. The third factor, which is the speed, by increasing the speed of the object, the friction force increases and vice versa, which means also they are in a direct relation. So what's meant by there is a direct relation between the friction force and the surface area, or even the speed? By increasing one of them, the other one will increase and vice versa. This what about the types of the factors of the friction force for the first type only, which is between solid. What about the second type? The second type is the friction force between solid object and air. And also, as we see, we can say it air resistance. It's a force that resulted from the motion of the object through air. It's affected by two factors, the speed of the body and the surface area of the moving object. By increasing the speed of the body, the air resistance increases and vice versa. But in the surface area, there's a difference between them here. If we look at the parachute, when the parachute opens his parachute during its landing, it needs to increase the surface area, so the air resistance increases while the speed decreases. This is the model answer, the completely answer. If I ask you, give reason, parachutist open his parachute during landing, you have to write, by increasing the surface area, air resistance increase and the speed decrease. Also, Pat stretch its wing during landing, the same answer for the parachute. But what about the object that have a streamlined shape? A streamlined shape like some new cars, rockets, airplanes, and aircrafts. We need to increase their speed, so they need to decrease the surface area, so the air resistance decreases and the speed increases. So aircrafts, airplanes, some new cars have a streamlined shape, while Pat stretch its wing and parachute stretch or open his parachute. They are the opposite answer. One of them increase the speed and one of them decrease the speed. Streamlined shape means decrease the area and increase the speed, while the parachute increase the area and decrease the speed. It will be more safe for him. What about the last type of the friction, which is water resistance? It's a force that resulted from the motion of the object through water, and also affected by two factors, which are the speed of the body and also the surface area. And also there the friction force between the water resistance and the speed, or the water resistance and the surface area. So ship or boat or fish or dolphins, all of them have a streamlined shape. Why? I have to write to decrease the surface area, so the water resistance decreases and the speed increases. This is completed answer. So if I ask you, I give reason, Fish, dolphin, bat have a streamlined shape to decrease the surface area, and water resistance decreases while the speed increases. We need the ship, the boat, the fish, the dolphin to move very fast through water. This for the meaning of the friction force, the types of the friction force, the factors that affect on each one. What about the lesson 2? Lesson 2 talks about the advantage and the disadvantage of friction. And as we see, we have many uses for the friction. We can use it to control the car's speed, to change its direction, to control also its brakes. Also, we can use the friction force holding objects. If there is no friction between your hand and the object will fall down through your hand. We can use the friction also in lighting up matches and walking on the ground. If there is no friction between your shoes and the ground, we will slide down. Okay. What about the disadvantage of the friction? The disadvantage, it has only one disadvantage, which is damage of machines. Actually, internal moving parts of machine, when they work together for a long period of time, it causes increasing in its temperature and also damage of machine and also wastage of money. Loss of money are wasted. So only we have disadvantage for the friction in this lesson here, which is damage of the internal moving parts of machines. This is for Unit 1, the friction, the meaning of it, the types of it, the factors that affect the friction, the advantage and the disadvantage. Let's start in Unit 2. Unit 2, as we know, starts with the circulatory system. We can call it transporting system as it's responsible for transporting materials like digested food and oxygen to all the body cells and carrying waste like carbon dioxide and water vapor and exhaust salt and exhaust water to a special organs to get rid of them. But the circulatory system consists of three main parts, which are the heart, the blood vessels, and the blood. Let's start with the heart. As we know, the heart, it's a muscular hollow organ. It's a size equal to the size of your fist. It pumps the blood all over the body cells or through the body cells. This is a function of the heart. Focus on what's meant by and mention one function for, especially in this unit. Let's complete. What about the structure of the heart? Excellent. The heart consists of four chambers, the upper chambers and the lower chambers. The upper are called as atrium or atria, and the lower are called ventricle. There is a valve between each atrium and ventricle, as we see on the board, to allow the blood to pass from the atrium to the ventricle, but prevent it from returning back to the atrium again, to prevent poisoning of the blood. But why there is a wall between the two sides? To prevent mixing blood in both sides. So there is a difference between the function of the valve and the function of the the wall separating between the two sides, while the valve prevents making or returning back the blood from the ventricle to the atrium. What about the blood vessels? We have three types of the blood vessels: arteries, veins, and blood capillaries. We can start with the arteries. They are thick blood vessels at the beginning, then they become thin. They are vessels that carry the blood from the heart, actually from the ventricle, to all the body cells. Like what? Like pulmonary artery and aorta. And it's the largest artery through the arteries, so it can pump the blood to all the body cells. While veins, they are thin blood vessels at the beginning, then become thick. They carry the blood from all the body to the heart, or actually to the atrium. Like what? Like pulmonary vein and superior and inferior vena cava. All arteries rich in oxygen except pulmonary artery, while all veins carries carbon dioxide, blood that rich in carbon dioxide except pulmonary vein. What about the last type of the blood vessels, which is blood capillaries? Blood capillary has a very thin wall. They are tiny or network of blood vessels that can connect between the beginning of the arteries and the end of the arteries and the beginning of the veins. They are in the middle, connect between them, and also they have thin walls to deliver the digested food and oxygen to all the body cells. This for the blood vessels, which is the second part in the circulatory system. So again, the structure of the circulatory system, the heart and the blood vessels. What about the blood? As we see, the blood consists of red blood cells, white blood cells, blood platelets, and plasma. Let's start with the red blood cell. They are cells that haven't nuclei, and also they have the functions which is carrying oxygen from the lungs to all the body cells, and also carbon dioxide gas from all the body cells to the two lungs to get rid of them actually during the exhalation process. The white blood cells, they cells that have different nuclei, and they have an important role which is defending against the microbes that can enter the body. The third part in the blood, which is blood platelets, they are small sized fragmented cell, and also they're responsible for, or we can say, helping coagulation of blood, forming blood clot, especially when your body is wounded, and stop bleeding. The last component in the blood, which is plasma. Plasma, it's a yellow watery fluid in which all the components of the blood swim in it. It has two functions here: carry the digested food and oxygen to all the body cells, and also carries waste to special organs to get rid of them. So we can say that the circulatory system, the blood capillaries, and also the plasma, all of them have the same functions, which are carrying the materials wherever they are digested food or they are waste. So until now we talked about the structure of the circulatory system, which are the heart, the blood vessels, and the blood. What about the blood circulation? The blood circulation started from all the body cells to deliver the blood to the right atrium through the vena cava. Then the right atrium contracts, pumping the blood to the right ventricle through valve. From the right ventricle to the two lungs through the pulmonary artery, and from the two lungs to the left atrium through through pulmonary vein, and then from left atrium to the left ventricle through the valve. Left ventricle can pump the blood to all the body cells through the aorta. So the aorta has the largest wall through the arteries because it's responsible for pumping all the blood to all the body cells. What about the number of the heartbeats? Your number of the heartbeats in only 1 minute is 70, but by doing exercise, this number can increase. What about the last part of the lesson, the maintenance of the circulatory system? How can you keep it healthy? Number one, by doing exercise every day, eat healthy and balanced food, eat fresh fruits and vegetables, drink suitable amount of water, avoid exposure to accidents to stop bleeding. Finally, avoid smoking and smoker, because as we know that the smoking can harm your heart and weakness the blood circulation. This for the circulatory system in lesson 1 unit 2. What about the lesson 2 in this unit? Talks about the excretion process, or actually the excretory system. Let's talk about the excretion. It's divided into two types for the waste: solid waste and excretory materials. Solid waste, they are the indigested food that stores in the large intestine until they pass outside the body. While the excretory materials are divided into three examples. Number one, carbon dioxide and water vapor. Number 2, nitrogenous waste, and excellent, excess salt and excess water. How does the body get rid of carbon dioxide gas with the water vapor during the exhalation process through the two lungs? This is the organ that's responsible for excretion of carbon dioxide gas. What about the excess water and excess salt? They can pass outside the body through the two organs. Number 1, sweat glands in skin in a form of sweat, or through urinary system through the two kidneys in a form of urine. What about the last example, which is nitrogenous waste? It consists of urea and uric acid, which is breaking down of protein and also can pass outside the body through the urinary system, actually through the two kidneys. So the urine here consists of urea, uric acid, excess salt and excess water, and its color is yellow, and we can say it's a fluid harmful substance. What about the structure of the urinary system? Urinary system lies in abdominal cavity, and it consists of two kidneys. They have the bean-shaped organ, are located on the both sides of the backbone. Then two ureters. They are very narrow tubes connected between the kidney and the urinary bladder. Also, urinary bladder, it's a sac like a balloon which stores urine temporarily until they pass outside the body through the end opening, which is called urethra. What is the function of the kidney here? It has two functions. Number 1, it filters the blood from wastes and also get rid of them in a form of urine. Don't forget that the impure blood enter the kidney through arteries and pass through it through vein. Then the impure blood passes from the kidney to the urinary bladder through the two ureters because they transferred the urine from the kidney to the urinary bladder. This is the function of the two ureters. And also the urinary bladder, as we see, stores urine temporarily until they pass outside the body. The last part in this lesson, we will talk about it, the maintenance of this system. How can you keep it healthy? Number 1, by eating fresh fruits and vegetables, actually which low in salts. Doing exercise also, it's very important for your body, wherever for the circulatory or for the urinary. Eat suitable amount of water, especially in the summer, because you secrete more sweat and you have to compensate this amount of water. Stop urinating in irrigation canals to avoid the schistosomiasis disease or bloody urine. And also, don't keep urine for a long period of time inside your bladder because this will harm the function or affect the function of the kidney. So you have to get rid of them continuously. This for the urinary system, or actually for unit 2. What about the unit 3? Unit 3 here talks about the soil. Lesson 1 talked about the components of the soil, the meaning of it, and the importance of it, and also the layers. Let's start with the soil. First, we have to know that the scientists can know the elements that are found inside the soil by their elements and also from their color and texture. This is number 1. What's meant by the soil? It's a thin, non-compacted layer or superficial loose layer that covers the earth crust. It consists of humus, air, water, silt, clay, and gravel, and also clay. What about the humus? It's the remains of the decay of living organisms like animals and plants. After they can mix with the soil, form the humus. The color of the humus is dark brown or black. So if I ask you why the color of the soil is dark brown or the black, you have to write due to the presence of the humus. But what about the soil erosion? Soil erosion something means erosion the first layer of the soil by the 3 factors that can cause it, which are change of the temperature, and as we know the temperature increases in the summer and decreases in the winter. It's not stable. and breaking down of rocks by the running water and also by the wind. You know that we can write in running water only, and also we can write rushing water. So what are the factors that causes soil erosion? Running water, wind, and the change of temperature. What is the importance of the soil for all living organisms? Actually, for the plants, this is number one. They take water and minerals by the roots to make their food by the photosynthesis process. For animals, they depend on the plant directly. For some living organisms like earthworm, spiders, and some insects, they make their homes under the ground, wherever the shelters or nests, according to the type of the animal or the type of the living organism. And also humans, they depend on some living organism like the animals and the plant in their food. So soil is very important for the environment, as all living organisms can depend on it. The last part in this lesson talks about the layers of the soil. The soil is composed of 3 layers: top soil layers, lower soil layers, and rocky soil layers. But in this lesson, we will talk about only the top soil layers. Top soil layers, grade 5, as we know, contains roots of plants, leaves, some living organisms like earthworm, and also some insects and ants. For example, roots of plant has an important role for the plant and for the soil. For the plant, absorption of water and minerals to make their food during photosynthesis process. But its importance or its role for the soil, they prevent soil erosion and help the plant to be cohesive. Cohesive means it fixes the plant well through the soil. What is the importance of the leaves for the soil? For the leaves, after their decay and death, they can form humus. What is the importance of the ants and insects? For them, they make nests and lay eggs under the ground. But their importance for the soil, they also form humus. What about the earthworm? Earthworm and the spiders make their shelter under the ground as they dig tunnels to allow air, water, and some nutrients to pass easily through the soil. So in this lesson, we talked about what? The meaning of the soil, the components of the soil, the importance of it for all living organisms, and also their layers, and the importance of each component in the layer for the plant and for the soil. The last lesson in Unit 3 talks about the types of the soil. First, the variation in the types of the soil depends on what? Depends on the variation of the type of rocks and minerals. And by breaking down some rocks, or rocks generally, it forms gravel, silt, and clay. We have 3 types of the soil, as we know in grade 5: sand, silt, and clay. We can compare between them according to their composition, that the sand is composed of mainly sand particles, so they called by this name, and its color is yellow. For its size of particles, they are very large, which means they are low compacted, which means loose, they aren't connected together. Erosion is very good in the sands, which means they allow air pass through it easily. Water absorption is very low. For the clay, it consists of clay and silt particles by some, or we can say equal amounts of them. Its color is dark, its size is very small, its erosion is very poor for passing the air through it, and its compactness is very hard, which means its particles are connected together well, and also the absorption is very high here. It can absorb water very well, which is very important for the soil. What about the silt? It consists of mixture of gravel, clay, silt, and humus. Its color is gray. Its size is medium, not large and not small. We can say moderate or moderately. And also we have some examples for the plant that can grow in each soil. Let's see. Let's see what about the drainage of water in sand is very fast, in clay is very slow, in silt it's very medium. What about the fertility? Fertility here focus grade 5. If he asks you about the fertility, you have to answer about the amount of the humus according to the type of the soil. If it's sand, it's less fertile because it contains rarely humus, rarely amount of humus. But clay is fertile, which contains some amount of soil, not large and not small. While the silt is very highly fertile because it contains a large amount of humus. What about the examples of the plant that grow in each type? We can grow in the sand peanut, cactus, and also cactus and peanut. They need a high temperature for their soil. Don't forget that why we can grow the potato and the sweet potatoes in the sand, because they give fruits under the soil surface, while the peanuts grow in the sand because it gives fruits. Potato produce tubers under the soil, while the peanut gives fruits peanut the soil surface. This is very important. What about the clay? Clay we can grow in it wheat, rice, and sugar cane. While the silt we can grow in it pomegranate, lemon, orange. And silt is the most suitable amount for cultivation because it has a large amount of humus and also it's highly fertile. This is what we took from the beginning of the term from Unit 1 till Unit 3. I wish to do the best and I trusted you. Thank you for your listening and I wish you a good day. Bye.